Hello, this is Sean Carroll, and this is my first assignment for Design Principles for Multimedia. I've chosen assignment number 4, create a content lesson, and then explain the theories that were used in designing the lesson. For the structure of this video, first I will just present what students would see, the video lesson, and then I'll replay it where I talk through some of the theories and principles that were used. Here's a brief summary of the 12 principles, and I'll go into more depth on those in the later half of the video. In today's lesson, we're going to be using the first section of the reading from yesterday on ancient Mesopotamia. And today we're going to be learning how to summarize the main idea of what we read, and also to include supporting details for our summary. We're going to use the boxes and bullets structure, which we've done before, so your final product will look something like this, with the main idea at the top, and then about 3 supporting details below. Okay, I'm going to give a quick summary of what we read yesterday. Here we have a map of ancient Mesopotamia, and we can see the area that we are talking about is this green area right in the middle, often called the Fertile Crescent. This Fertile Crescent has 2 really important rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates River, which are really important to the development of Mesopotamia. One of the reasons why the rivers are so important is because they occasionally flood. When the river floods and the water spills over, it delivers lots of nutrients and vitamins to the soil along the river. That makes it really good for growing crops. Once the Mesopotamians built their farms next to the river, they needed a way to get water. They needed a way to water those plants. They came up with a system of irrigation where they can dig ditches from the river to the farms and then deliver water directly to the farm where they needed it. The areas that were not directly along the river were very dry, desert-like places. There was not much resources there. Trees didn't grow there, so they weren't able to use wood for building houses, making tools, and so on. So this led to them needing to trade with other people for some of those resources that they needed. If we take all the information I just talked about and all the information that we read from yesterday, we can sum up that first section in the sentence that geography impacted Mesopotamia's development. Now, the next step is for you to come up with 3 or 4 supporting details. How did the geography of Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent influence or impact its development? We're going to stop the video in a few seconds to give you a chance to write out those 3 supporting details. When you're finished writing those 3 details, then restart the video to see how it compares to my example. Okay, ready? Stop. Welcome back, and let's have a look at what our supporting details might look like. You probably need these 3 key words in your supporting details: agriculture, irrigation, and trade. When I write my supporting details, I want to turn it into a statement or a full sentence, so yours may look something like this, although it doesn't have to be exactly that. All right, great job. You are ready to try it again on your own. So please read the next section and create a boxes and bullets with the main idea and supporting details. All right, see you tomorrow. Good, now I will go back and analyze the lesson using the 12 principles of multimedia learning laid out by Richard Mayers. So throughout the whole video, it is a multimedia presentation. There are words and pictures, so that principle has been used. The personalization principle, I tried to use a conversational language using I, we, you. The voice principle, I use my own voice, not a computer simulated voice. And the image principle, I don't have a picture of myself on the screen. So those four principles have been used throughout the video. In this first slide, I am attempting to use the pre-teaching principle, which helps elicit prior knowledge. This is just a picture of the first page of the text we read yesterday. So hopefully this reminds students of what they read and helps prime them for what's to come. I didn't want to include a lot of key vocabulary just because I thought that might sort of interfere with the segmenting principle. It might have gotten too long if I tried to review all the vocabulary. And also it might sort of interfere with the coherence principle, that there just might be too much going on in the video. So I made a choice to leave out key vocabulary. For this slide, I worried a little bit about violating the redundancy principle because I sort of just read what is here. But this learning intention is sort of a school-wide, not requirement, but lessons all have learning intentions. We try to keep it in the same format so students can kind of signal, so it signals for the students what that is and it's easily identifiable. So I thought it was important to include that. Also, some of the research saying for English language learners are really key details. It's okay to sort of violate the redundancy principle in some ways for those types of material. This slide is attempting to use a signaling principle to show students, what their final product is going to look like and what really the focus of the lesson is to create this graphic organizer. In this set of slides, I tried to use two principles, the signaling principle to focus your attention in this area of the map, and also the spatial contiguity principle, labeling those rivers as close to the image as possible with bright arrows that makes it clear where we're looking and what the focus is. In the next set of slides, I really tried to focus on utilizing the modality principle and the coherence principle. This probably is where a lot of multimedia presentations go off course a bit. The sort of push to put more information on the screen, more text, is pretty strong, so I had to really go through a couple drafts to make sure I didn't have too much text and wasn't just repeating the same thing that I was saying, and also that the coherence principle wasn't violated by having text that wasn't necessarily adding anything, and that just might be a distraction. So here is an example of a earlier slide that I was going to use and then revised, thinking that it didn't do a great job living up to the modality and coherence principle. And I also included the corresponding page number for the text, which can be a bit of signaling so students know where to sort of find that information and where to look and where it corresponds in their textbook. For this slide, I worried a little bit about it being redundant, but then sort of thought this is very key information, the main idea, which I wanted to provide for students, so there was no real way to get around presenting this information like that. This part of the lesson, I think, shows the signaling principle. It pretty clearly, I think, shows that it's time to stop. And it's also segmenting the video, that now students are going to go off and apply what they just learned and give it a try. And also the interactivity principle, where students can control the pace so they can take as long as they want to complete this. They know that if they missed part of the information, they can go back and re-watch it again and then get to this point, and then we'll be responsible for producing something. In this first slide, I tried to apply portions of the modality principle by having more narration and less text. Here is just the key words that students should be using. This is probably a bit more focused on scaffolding the information first, and then the next slide is a completed product, which is redundant. I tried not to speak at this point, so students can just have that there more as a check. But since this is such sort of vital information and kind of the finished product, I thought it, is important to have its own space there. And finally, the key resources that were used, the two YouTube videos that were provided, the Koichi Sato video, which was a summary of the longer Richard E. Mayer video, were both very useful. And also, I found an article by Richard E. Mayer from American Psychologist that was, although similar, also very useful. I definitely have to admit that I'm not very comfortable or experienced with the citings and particularly giving photo credit. I don't think I've done it correctly, but I'm going to leave it like that for now and hopefully spend some more time kind of researching that in the future. The Creative Commons license is on the bottom, and I think that is the most suitable one for this presentation. So thank you, and look forward to continue working with you.